Hello everyone and welcome to Canadian Payroll Association's PCP Work Experience webinar. My name is Parisa Hayati and I'm the Credentialing Specialist at the Canadian Payroll Association. Also, my colleague Roxana Dobrina, who is the Credentialing Coordinator, is with us today. The focus of this information session is the Payroll Compliance Practitioner Work Experience requirement. We will be looking at the PCP Work Experience requirement, how to fill out the form, and addressing some frequently asked questions regarding the application process. Fulfilling the work experience requirement is the next step after completing all of the educational requirements of a PCP certification. Since the implementation of the PCP work experience requirement, an important new payroll terminology has entered into payroll community, which is the PCP candidate status. This status differentiates those individuals who had completed all of the education requirement but are not a PCP certified member yet. These individuals have the same knowledge base as the PCP certified individuals. PCP candidates have the education required to get started on their career. It's important for employers to understand this distinction, as these candidates need to work in a payroll position in order to obtain the required experience and be able to apply for the PCP certification. PCP candidates have a 10-year window in which to satisfy the 1-year requirement. Students completing their payroll courses on a part-time basis will have 5 years prior and 5 years after the start date of their first successful attempt of a payroll compliance legislation course to submit their certification declaration. Those completing the PCP courses as a part of a full-time private career college or public college will have 5 years prior or 5 years after the end of their Payroll Fundamentals 2 course to submit their certification declaration. The timeline window has been shifted to the end of their education requirements to accommodate their situation, since full-time students are typically unable to work in a full-time capacity. For those students that had already completed one or more courses prior to January 1st, 2015, they will have until January 1st, 2020 to satisfy the experience requirement, apply or maintain their membership, and submit their certification declaration to obtain their PCP certification. In order to submit the payroll experience, an electronic application is available to all the PCP candidates. Only those individuals who have successfully completed the education requirements of the PCP certification will have access to the electronic application. Candidates must submit a separate application for each position they would like to use toward their 1-year experience. A guide with instruction on how to fill out the application is available on our website. We encourage you to review the website prior to submitting an application. Now I will pass the floor to Roxana, who is going to provide you with some information on how to fill out a PCP work experience application online.
Thank you, Parisa. Hello, everyone. We will start by going through each of the pages of the WARE application one by one so that you have a better idea of what to expect when you're filling out the application yourself. The first part of the application is the My Profile page. The screenshot you see here captures the My Profile page, which will already be populated with your Canadian Payroll Association number, first name, last name, email, and phone number as pulled directly from the CPA's member database. This information cannot be edited. If you wish to make any changes to your personal information, you are required to do so through the CPA website. The next page is the Position Profile page, which requires you to enter your position title, organization name, mailing address, position start date, and position end date if applicable. Also required would be the name of your direct supervisor for verification, their position and contact info, including the verifier's phone number and an email address. Verifier email addresses must be professional and company specific. Verifier emails from Hotmail, Rogers, Gmail, or other personal accounts will not be permitted. The next step of the application process is the business profile. In the business profile section, you are asked to provide information about the organization and the position being submitted for assessment, including the number of employees of the organization and the type of industry, whether it is private, public, self-employed, and so on. In this section, you are required to upload a job description of the position being assessed along with a reverse chronological resume with the most recent position listed first. Candidates will not be able to continue with the application until both attachments are in place. It is important to note that the dates and position title on the application must match those on your resume and job description for consistency. On the same page, you are asked to enter the percentage of your time spent on payroll activities in the organization. This is the aspect of the assessment that makes the requirement weighted. The number of approved months of experience will ultimately be multiplied by this percentage in order to determine the number of months that the candidate has actually been obtaining payroll-specific experience. For example, if you spend 100% of your time on payroll-related tasks in the organization, it would take you 1 year to satisfy the 12-month work experience requirement. However, if you spend 50% of your time on payroll-related duties in the organization, it would take you 2 years to satisfy the 12-month requirement. This is used to calculate payroll experience for positions that are not strictly payroll-related, such as positions in accounting or human resources. You are also required to enter the percentage of time you have spent on 8 broad payroll categories, as well as indicating, using checkboxes, the specific sub-activities you complete as part of your responsibilities. The sum of the percentages entered for the categories must enter 100%, indicating the full breakdown of your payroll-specific responsibilities. Not every category is required for a candidate's position to be accepted. Some positions could have several categories at 0% that would still qualify. Please take a moment to look at the various categories of payroll responsibilities listed here. The application will include subcategories for each one, which will give you a better idea as to what each category entails. More detailed information regarding these categories can be found on our website. The next section, the communication skills section, will pose 2 questions inquiring about the candidate's written and verbal skills in either French or English, depending on the primary language indicated, to help determine if the candidate requires additional resources to help them succeed. As a PCP student, you can say that you would benefit from having access to these resources to improve your verbal or written communication skills, and your response will not affect your application. This is for informational purposes only. This is the final section of the candidate portion of the application. Here, you must declare that all information provided is complete, accurate, and aligned with the Canadian Payroll Association's Professional Code of Conduct. Remember, you will not be able to submit the application if any of the required fields or backup documentation is missing. Once you click the I agree, submit application button, the application will be sent to your verifier for review and submission. You can check the status of your application every time you log into the application website. Once the application is submitted, an email will automatically go out to your verifier, providing them with a link to the application and explaining the role as their verifier. At the top of each application screen, directions will be provided instructing them to review each section of the application. Verifiers will not be able to edit any part of your original submission. The verifier's responsibility is to confirm that the information portrayed is accurate. They have a choice to either approve the application as is or return the application to the candidate for revision. With this option, the application will be returned to the candidate, who will be required to make changes before resubmitting to the verifier. Verifiers are also asked to provide comments on the areas requiring revision to provide guidance to the candidate as to what the issue might be. Also on the verifier's declaration page, the verifier is asked the same communication skill questions pertaining to the candidate as were listed earlier in the Communication Skills section. Note that the verifier's responses to these questions do not affect the application's assessment. After the verifier approves the application, it is forwarded to the CPA. This chart illustrates how the WERA is calculated. The first row shows the number of months in the position. The number of months is calculated based on the start and end date of the position as reported by the candidate. If no end date is listed, the position is assumed to be ongoing. The 10-year PCP work experience eligibility window is then calculated with the start date being listed as 5 years prior to the candidate's PCP eligibility date, as provided by the CPA, and the end date listed as 5 years after the PCP eligibility date. Only work experience that falls within this window is counted. In this situation, all 24 months are within the eligibility window. Next, the application lists the percentage of time that the candidate spends on payroll activities in their organization. The accepted months, in this case 24, is multiplied by the percentage of time the candidate spends on payroll activities to determine the number of months accepted toward the PCP work experience requirement. As you could see from this example, 80% of 24 months is approximately 19 months, so this position qualifies for 19 months of work experience. The CPA assessor will determine the final rating of each application as approved, not approved, or returned to candidate. That's when key information is missing or needs to be clarified before a determination can be made. When a position is denied, whether it's due to insufficient tasks being completed or falling outside of the accepted work experience eligibility window, the assessor will mark the application as not approved. Appropriate assessor comments will also be provided, explaining why the position is not being accepted. When a position is accepted, the assessor will mark the application as approved, and an email will automatically be sent to the candidate informing them of the results of their assessment. The email will include the number of approved months and any assessor comments. If the candidate has not yet reached the required 12 months of experience to satisfy the PCP work experience requirement, the email will communicate the number of months that have been granted. If the candidate has 12 or more months granted toward the requirement, the email will communicate the next steps required for the candidate to get certified. Work experience applications have a 20 business day turnaround time from the date the verifier had approved the application. You can log into the platform at any time to see the status of your application. There are 6 possible application statuses. New means that an application has been started but not yet submitted to the verifier. Verification means that the application is with a verifier pending his or her approval. Assessment means that the application has been approved by the verifier and is now with the CPA pending assessment. Candidate revision. The application was returned to the candidate by the verifier or by the CPA assessor and is in need of modifications or clarifications. Approved means the application has been approved by the CPA. Not approved means the application has not been approved by the CPA. I will now pass the floor to Parisa, who will share with you some frequently asked questions with regards to the work experience requirements.
Thank you, Roxana. Here are some questions that we receive from our candidates in regards to verifiers. I work for a small business and my verifier does not have a professional email address. The application will not allow Gmail or Hotmail domains. What do I do? The electronic application does not allow personal email addresses as a way to verify the person's application. However, sometimes a company closes down or the previous manager retires and has no longer an email address related to that company. Or even the business is too small to have a company-specific email address. In these cases, the candidate is encouraged to contact the certification department directly and explain the situation. These applications are reviewed on a case-by-case basis to accommodate these scenarios. However, it's important to mention that all these applications will be audited. Another question that we receive on a frequent basis is, my old manager or supervisor no longer works for the company and I cannot get a hold of them. Who can I use as my verifier instead? You can use another person in the company who you reported to or the direct report of your manager, for example, the vice president. If those are not feasible options, you can use the human resources manager at your company. It's important to mention that you should not use someone as a verifier who is a lateral to you in the company. Another question that we receive is, who can I use as a verifier if I'm a self-employed individual? If you're a self-employed individual, your client can be used as a verifier. Self-employed individuals or their client may be contacted by the Canadian Payroll Association for a short interview. Here are some other commonly asked questions. Can I combine more than one payroll position in order to fulfill the PCP work experience requirement? The answer is yes. If your current or past position you have less than 1 year of applicable payroll experience, you can combine positions to satisfy the 1 year requirement. Remember, you must complete a separate application form for each payroll position being submitted for assessment. Another question that we receive again so frequently is, does non-Canadian payroll experience qualify toward 1 year PCP work experience requirement? No, it does not. As payroll requirements vary significantly from country to country, in order to obtain the PCP certification, you must have at least 1 year of weighted Canadian work experience in payroll to satisfy this requirement. Can I submit the application manually? No, we do not accept any paper-based application, and all applications should be sent through the PCPV website. Here is another question. In order to log in to the PCPV website, can I use my login information for the CPA website? The login information for the CPA website and the PCPV experience are different. You will receive the access information for the PCPV website once you meet the educational requirements by email. And the last question, what should I do if I do not recall my password to the PCPV website? You can reset your password by clicking on the Forgot Password feature available on the home page of the PCPV website. This brings us to the end of our webinar. We hope you have found the session informative. We encourage you to check our website for more detailed information about the PCPV process. If you have any question that we did not cover during this session and you could not find them on our website, please email them to the certification department at certification@payroll.ca. Thank you all for attending and participating in this information session. Enjoy the rest of your day.